think a 1,000-yard season is very much in the offing, as long as he doesn't miss more than 1 or 2 games.
Well, I really think if he stays healthy, 1,000 yards is an automatic, and he should have 1,000 yards receiving, 1,000 yards rushing, and maybe 600 yards receiving. I think that's the kind of back they need him to be. Let's talk about Cousins next. Do want to thank Bite Squad, bitesquad.com. Download the Bite Squad app. Makes paying really easy. Here's how easy Bite Squad can be. Go on the Bite Squad app. You already have your information uploaded. You order it. You can pay through the app. Food shows up. You don't have to drive, park. You can have a beer at home that costs you $2 instead of going someplace where it costs $10. No chance of getting a DUI, no dishes, just the easiest meal you can have, and you can get great food from anywhere. And they now have a members program where you can pay $5.99 a month and get free delivery every month from any restaurant within a 4-mile radius. Everything from pizza to high-end food to just anything you want. Bite Squad app, promo code TalkNorth gets your first delivery free, but just use it because it's good for you. It fits into your life. So I'll let you just take it. Tell me what Kirk Cousins had to say and how you reacted to it.
Yeah, well, let me kind of set it up by saying I felt like the second half of last year, there were a few times where Cousins didn't really seem to want to take any of the blame, any of the responsibility for, an offense that had started out very hot in the first 4 or 5 games and kind of tailed off at the end. He seemed to be a little bit more reflective, and I think that has to do with having, 3-4 months off to look back at his season and also maybe study some film and look at things that he could do better. And so the one thing that he came back with this week in talking for the first time since the end of the season was he felt like there was a lack of explosive plays. And I think he put some of that on himself. When he was asked about the offensive line issues and if he really indeed had the time to set up explosive plays, he didn't use that as an excuse. And he said, there were times where we maybe didn't have our, top 5 offensive linemen all available and we still got it done. So we can't use that as an excuse. We have 5 guys here that could be, effective with this offense. But I think the thing that he really was pointing out to was, explosive plays aren't always about having 4 seconds to stand back in the pocket and have something open up downfield. I think he feels like, and a lot of the Vikings on the offensive side, all the way to Mike Zimmer, feel like one thing that is really going to help this offense is having a play action passing game. If they can get their running game to be more effective, then all of a sudden defenses have to start to respect that. And with Gary Kubiak, his experience, and Rick Dennison, the offensive line coach, Kevin Stefanski is the coordinator, all of that coming together and setting up an outside zone running scheme, I think it fits perfectly to Dalvin Cook's skill set. And I think that it will really help out that offensive line and being able to set up blocks and be able to hold blocks a little bit better if they can get the play action passing game going.
Why does Kyle Rudolph think that people are writing him off?
Well, I think he actually has reason to feel that way because, I've seen quite a few mock drafts that say, well, if TJ Hawkinson, the Iowa tight end, is available, he would give them that explosive playmaker. I think Rudolph is actually justified in feeling like some people are writing him off or saying he's too old. And, he reminded people that he is not yet 30 years old and he believes he's got a lot of good years ahead of him. The one thing that we hear every year at this time is, or during OTAs, it's always seems like there's a new offensive coordinator, a new scheme coming. And Rudolph is always talking about how this coordinator had success with tight ends in the past. We heard it with Norv Turner, a little bit with Pat Shurmur. We heard it, Zach Ertz in Philadelphia with John DeFilippo coming over. And he's been fairly steady, productive, not necessarily a top 5 tight end, but probably right around that 10 to 15 mark. Rudolph I think he kind of has a pulse for what fans feel. And I do feel like some fans think, well, they need more explosiveness at the tight end position. And, I don't think that's going to hurt them if they go out and find an explosive tight end. But I think Kyle Rudolph is definitely a huge part of their plans this year. Going forward, however, you don't really know how things are going to play out with his contract. But, he said he is more than willing, and he said this on several occasions this offseason, that he is very willing to restructure his contract, create more cap space for the Vikings, and add more years to his contract. So far, however, the Vikings not approached his agent looking to do that. Now, doesn't mean they couldn't do that maybe before the draft or even after the draft when they figure out exactly what they need to sign their rookie class.
Interesting. I just think Kyle is what he is. He's a good player. He's not a game breaker, but he's a very useful player. I just think we know exactly what he is. We don't have to debate it anymore. I want to thank Tony Hoagland, Hoaglund, your State Farm agent in Champlin. Work them via app, phone, internet, email, whatever. They're very easy to work with. They handle my insurance. They also handle Michael Russo's insurance, and they now offer financial services.
Hey, Minnesota sports fans, this is your local State Farm agent, Tony Hoagland. I need you all to ask yourselves this question. If you're in an at-fault car accident and you are sued for $700,000, how much of that $700,000 will my current insurance company pay? If you are unsure or can't answer all $700,000, you need to give us a call. State Farm has been number 1 in car insurance since World War II and number 1 in homeowners insurance since 1964. For a no-obligation review of your current policies, call us at 763-421-4900 or check out our website at www.champlininsurance.com.
Okay, so now we're kind of into the process of the offseason. They have players in town. They're going through workouts and meetings. I don't know. What do you make of that? Is there anything new or unusual to note from this time of year?
Not really. I mean, the workouts and the conditioning things that players are going through are all pretty standard. One of the takeaways from earlier this week was, a bunch of players were put up at the podium and talking about 2018 and what a letdown they felt that they had. They had high expectations. Fans had high expectations coming off of that NFC Championship game the previous season. And I think a lot of them have realized that, they have the talent to be a deep playoff team, but I think one of them even said, basically, we can't just roll in here and think that we are automatically going to get back to the NFC Championship game. And I kind of got the feeling like maybe they did think a little too much of themselves last year. And Mike Zimmer even said earlier this offseason that one of the things he wants to figure out is how to handle the follow-up season after a relatively successful season the year before. And I don't know what exactly that means and how he's going to approach things differently. I know he wasn't super thrilled that it seems like there is just this great luxury of a building that they have out there, and maybe players got a little too comfortable, too many amenities out there. But I think he could come down with a little heavier hand, trying to make sure that players are staying on task throughout the offseason and learning a playbook that Kirk Cousins has said is he tweeted out a picture of the playbook and it looks very expansive. Now, how much they carry into each game will be interesting to see, but he has a learning curve himself, but he also has familiarity with this offense with Gary Kubiak and Kyle Shanahan, and it's essentially the same offense that Cousins was running in Washington. So I think he will have an easier job learning the playbook versus maybe some of the other offensive players out there. So I think those are all going to be things to watch. How comfortable can Cousins get? How quickly does that happen? And then, how quickly is he on the same page with his receivers when it comes to a new playbook?
We joke about the Vikings taking a quarterback in the first round this year, but to ask you seriously, do you think they will draft a quarterback someplace in this draft?
Yes, I do think that, and I think that for a couple of reasons. I don't think it's going to be the first round, and I think Mike Zimmer has seen enough, fan complaints about taking Mike Hughes, and it's not a knock at all on Mike Hughes. I think he can be a very good cornerback, but there is that perception out there that Zimmer's just going to keep drafting cornerbacks, and he gets that perception and kind of tries to laugh it off. But when you look at Trey Waynes in the final year of his contract, and I don't think they're going to be able to pay him what other teams are going to be able to pay him in 2020. I think he's probably gone. Mackenzie Alexander had a good year last year. I would say his first really good year in the 3 years that he's been with the team, but he will be up for a new contract. Holton Hill has starting the season with a 4-game suspension for PEDs. Mike Hughes coming off of ACL surgery. We're not exactly sure how soon he'll be ready. I think he should probably be ready by the start of the regular season, but he will probably have to take things a little bit slower in the offseason. So all those things say, yeah, they probably could use another cornerback, but in this case, I think it's going to be more of a developmental cornerback, a guy maybe you find in the 4th round, 5th round, and still has a lot of talent that can be developed, but he may be just a little bit raw and not quite ready for NFL action yet.
Alan Page wins a $50,000 grant for his foundation. I did back when I was doing kind of a different kind of podcast. I had Alan on as a guest. He's a blast. So tell me more about this.
Yeah, the NFL Foundation came up with a new program this year where they have I think it's called the Legends Grant, and so they gave 3 different former players different levels of money for their foundations to do good charitable work, and Page actually got the most out of it. He was a $50,000 winner. They had a $40,000 and $30,000 winner as well. But Alan Page to me is one of these guys that I heard a lot about. Hey, Bud Grant just didn't necessarily like it that Page was so interested in his off the field pursuits, whether it was his law degree when he was playing. But man, the guy has made a big impact in the community with what he does with his Page Education Foundation. Always looking to advance the education for people of color. And what I love about the way that he approaches it is he's not just giving out scholarships to minority students, but he's also making sure that if he is giving them a scholarship, they are being active as well in tutoring other young students of color in the classroom, making sure that they are realizing the importance of a good education. So I really like the way that Page is going about it. It's not just throwing money at a scholarship. It's also about making the people that he's giving these scholarships better students themselves, but also better leaders for younger people that are people of color and looking to further their education.
Well, good to hear that about, I always forget what to call him, the Honorable Mr. Page. I'm not sure what to call him.
Yes.
Alan, whatever. Great work by him as always. All right, let's wrap the show up. Once again, thanks to Twill. And let's talk about the projected wins by ESPN and their schedule. By the time you hear this, the actual dates on the schedule might be out, but we're going to talk about just the matchups. And again, thanks to TwillMN.com. That's Twill Medina Galleria. Bite Squad, promo code Talk North, and Tony Hoagland, HOAGLUND, your State Farm agent who works out of Champlin. All right, the ESPN is projecting the Vikes are 8.8 victories. That makes a lot of sense. I usually overestimate, well, except for the year they won 13 games, I've generally overestimated this group. I always feel like they're a 10 or 11 win team, but I understand 8.8. They have the Vikings winning against Washington, the Giants, Atlanta, Denver, at Detroit, Chicago, Oakland, Green Bay, and at home against Detroit. They have losses at Green Bay, Dallas,